Hi everyone, it's Father Michael Trummer. Just wanted to make a little video about Lent, mostly just focused on like particular recommendations for ideas of how to get more out of Lent, basically. Just to say something about Lent in general, it's important for us to realize that this is not just about doing hard stuff. It's not just about giving something up. The purpose of Lent is for us to draw near to God. The purpose of Lent is for us to deepen our relationship with God. And sometimes we have sins or distractions, or we have these little idols that really prevent us from having a deeper relationship with God. And so Lent is a chance for us to really purify ourselves. I like to think of Lent as a type of like spiritual detox. So there's a lot of people today who are really focused on physical detox, which is good and fine. But how much more important is it that we have a soul that is free of, spiritual toxins? So I just want to give some practical recommendations now of ideas that could help you get more out of Lent. So the first thing I'll say is just focusing on prayer. So there are three common pillars of Lent, which is prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. And so more important than just giving up chocolate or giving up your favorite TV show, something so important is taking extra time to pray. Again, the purpose of Lent is for us to deepen our relationship with God. And prayer, I would say, definitely is the most important pillar of Lent. And so as you're thinking and deciding what should you do for Lent or not do, really prioritize prayer. But even more specifically than just prayer in general, I would recommend, one, taking time to read the Gospels. So maybe you're someone you pray with the Mass readings every day. You're probably set. If you're someone who's not really taking the time to actually read through the Gospels, I really encourage you to read through like one particular Gospel or even all of the Gospels. Like, we're so blessed to be able to read it all. Like, a lot of people throughout history have not been literate in terms of having access to the Bible. The Bible for a very long time was something very expensive. And so now we're people who can access the Bible so readily and easily. So it's so important for us to really read the Gospels. This is about the life of Jesus. It's interesting that we might know facts about all sorts of random things. Like, some people are really good with like trivia. Some people know a lot about like sports facts and statistics and things like that. But the question is, like, have we actually read the Gospels, which is about the person, Jesus, who's supposed to be the most important person in our life? And so that would definitely be a recommendation, is taking the time to read the Gospels and have a specific goal. So it could be 3 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, 10, 20 minutes a day. Pick a specific amount of time for that. My next recommendation would be taking time to go pray with Jesus in adoration. So that could be where Jesus is exposed in the monstrance, where the host is visible, where Jesus is visible. Or it could just be any church where there's a tabernacle. You can go spend time with Jesus. So God is present everywhere. He's present when you go to pray in your room, but he's more fully present in the Eucharist. It's the fullness of his presence, particularly with the fullness of his humanity. So we say the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus. And so any Catholic church where Jesus is present, the consecrated host is present in the tabernacle, a very special time to pray. So for a lot of people, maybe every single day isn't really doable or practical, but maybe you can pick a time every week, like something in your schedule where you can go every single week to pray with Jesus. My third recommendation, which is similar to the second one, but I would just say in general, taking more time for silence. So when we talk about fasting, there's just physical treats and things like that. There's food that we eat, but we're so inundated. We're so surrounded by noise and distractions, and we don't really have time to reflect on what's going on in our own heart, what's going on in our own soul, what is God saying to us. And so something that's so important is silence. And remember that Jesus had the 40 days in the desert. And so Lent, we're imitating Jesus's time in the desert. And so a characteristic of the desert is extremely still and it's extremely quiet. And so I'd really recommend finding intentional ways to have more silence. Particularly would be great is in the morning and before you go to bed. My next recommendation, I think it's the fourth one, also connected, there's this kind of like more sequential here, would be listening to less music. So I don't know what kind of music you listen to, but it goes with just taking the more time for silence. One, to pray, but just in general, sometimes we can just constantly have music playing. I know that when I used to work, I had like 3 hours in the morning where I was getting the restaurant ready, and I just constantly had music. And so, yes, take time to pray, but even if you're not specifically praying, just taking time to not be so stimulated with noise. And this is especially good if sometimes the music you listen to isn't super wholesome. An alternative approach would be maybe replacing some of the more kind of worldly, really excessively catchy music and just doing something more like instrumental music. So classical music could be, more beautiful, inspiring movie soundtrack. It could be choral music. That's a very powerful thing. Even in your very brain, I think it's a very powerful thing to try out for Lent, is just taking Lent to just listen to more inspiring instrumental music. It's very ordered, it's very harmonious, and I think it has a powerful effect on the physical brain, but also the soul. Another idea for Lent would be taking time to go to daily mass. So some people don't really ever go to daily mass. It's not something that I really did, basically hardly at all, until like right before I joined the seminary. I didn't know if I even knew daily mass was a thing. But what's really beautiful about daily mass is that you're there because you just want to be there. And with like the Sunday mass or the Saturday evening mass, it's good to be there, but there's still a sense of this is like expected of us as believers to keep holy the Sabbath. So going to daily mass is really gratuitous. It's just a really wonderful gift of your time to give to God. And yeah, going to daily mass, just try it. It's different when you're there just because you want to be there and you don't have to be there. So even if it's not every day, although if you can, that'd be great. Even just one day a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever you prefer, picking one of those days to go to daily mass. My next recommendation, this is probably pretty obvious, but would be taking time to go to confession. If someone went through Lent and they gave up chocolate and they gave up soda throughout the entirety of Lent, but they didn't go to confession, well, that wouldn't really be an ideal Lent. So if someone didn't give up anything at all, they had all the chocolate they wanted, but they took time to go to confession, that would be a more fruitful Lent. So to be clear, we can do both. We can make these little sacrifices of sweets or something like that, but also don't forget the most powerful spiritual detoxification tool we have, which is the sacrament of confession, and really taking the time to do a thorough examination of conscience, preparing, if you feel comfortable, taking notes on your phone or something, and then going to confession. Being very, very thorough. There's nothing more detoxifying, purifying than a very thorough confession. Just to say a little bit more about fasting specifically. So I think priority should be really prayer and deepening a relationship with God, but fasting is good. And so the reality is that we find our joy in something other than God all the time. We can try to find our joy and happiness in like pleasures. It could be pleasures of eating, certainly entertainment. Entertainment is a big idol. It's what the things that prevent us like from praying, the things that prevent us from deepening our relationship with God, the things that make us busy, those are a common example of idols. But whatever it is, there are these other lower things where we try to find our joy in instead of finding it in God. What's beautiful about fasting is that we're refraining from these things where we falsely look to satisfy us, and we, don't have that at all, or we have less of it, in order to recenter our focus on God, to find our joy in Him. And so when you're thinking about fasting, there's the food aspect, but there's also other things as well. So digital fasting. I know this is on social media, so hope I'm not a hypocrite, but yeah, certainly less time on social media. If you don't see my content, it's probably worth it for the other benefits. But yeah, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it is that you use, TikTok certainly, really consider doing a social media fast, or really limiting how much you use it, just using it a certain time of the day or one day of the week and a particular time of the day. But yeah, whatever it's like your pleasure, whatever you try to find joy in instead of God, consider refraining from that. I think a positive replacement just for more mindless entertainment would actually be trying to take in something substantial and that really is nourishing to your soul. And so, there's like so much amazing content on Formed. If you've not heard of formed.org, it's a great Catholic resource with lots of videos and audio to deepen your faith. Certainly Hallows, an app for prayer, that's great as well. But then even like a really specific recommendation, I would say watching the series The Chosen. Like, I don't think The Chosen, it's a TV show about Jesus. If you haven't heard about it, I'm sure you probably at least heard of it. I don't think it's 100% perfect portrayal of, what actually happened, but I think it's a really awesome TV show. And I love the way that Jesus is depicted in The Chosen. And so I think watching The Chosen during Lent would be a great idea. I really think it would help someone draw closer to God. So I recommend maybe setting aside more of the worldly videos or TV shows and really consider watching The Chosen. It's an amazing show, and I think you'll find it very fruitful. So just to conclude, another aspect of Lent is almsgiving. So we should always be giving our money to the church and to the poor, but Lent is this focus on almsgiving. And so beyond what we would normally give, we want to give extra in some sort of way during this time of Lent. So hopefully this is helpful. Just wanted to share some specific practical ideas as you enter into Lent. Even if you haven't decided something yet, it's okay if you're a day or two behind. But I just really encourage you to be intentional and specific. So not just like, I just want to pray more or I want to eat less. Have very specific goals. So what do you want to do for your prayer time? What specifically are you giving up? The more specific you are, the more you can hold yourself accountable. So thank you for watching or listening. God bless.